So I'm having a chat with Sam of X Ambassadors. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little tired. It's funny, like I'm solidly in my mid 30s now and experiencing the like wake up in the middle of the night thing. And, I'm like peeing like four times in the middle of the night. And then also just my brain is racing. So, you know, still getting used to that.
Yeah, that's what happens when we get old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we've been playing a new single of yours called No Strings. Tell us a little bit about the single, first of all.
It is the first single off of our new record, Townie, which is coming out next week. I wrote it, started it like a long time ago. The chorus, and the kind of like musical bedrock of it was written in 2018, 2019. And it was kind of one of those ones that we started and then ended up scrapping because we just didn't really know what to do with it. And about halfway through writing this new record, I kind of noticed two things. One, that we had like no kind of like up-tempo songs on the album. And two, that there was something about the spirit of the chorus that I think rang true to what we were trying to do with this record. It felt young, and it felt like it had some energy there that was similar to how it felt growing up in upstate New York. This bottled up kind of contained thing where I and my friends and I would always just search for a million different tiny escapes from where we were, which was a pretty isolated
Hmm.
place. And I mean, like Ithaca is less isolated than some small towns, but still, it's in the middle of a huge state of New York State. It's 5 hours away from the city. It's like we had a tiny regional airport there. You have the two universities, which is, I guess, a little bit of a connection to the bigger world outside. But beyond that, you're pretty it's a pretty insular community. And yeah, the song just kind of felt like a great first single. It also, I mean, I don't know, it reminded me a little bit of some of our earlier stuff. Reminded me of a song like Renegades,
Hmm.
which people resonated with when we put it out. So I think it was a nice way to kind of open the door to our fans and to people who've enjoyed our music in the past, to invite them into this new world. And still found a way to take this chorus that didn't really mean much at the time we wrote it, and then writing verses around it that contextualized it in upstate New York and my experience of growing up there and my friends' experiences growing up there. That made it kind of a no-brainer for the album and as a first single.
Yeah, nice. And as you mentioned, that is coming off your new record, Townie, which comes out on April the 5th. How does this record sound in comparison to your previous?
Um, I think in a lot of ways it's a more mature record than we've made. I think the songwriting, I've grown a lot as a songwriter in the last 3, 4 years. Um, and I dug real deep on this one, and I think it felt at first like a catharsis, and then by the end of it I really just kind of fell back in love with the process of making a record, which I haven't really reconnected with, I think, since before we were signed to any major label or anything. From the moment we signed our first record deal, I was a ball of stress, and making this record didn't feel stressful at all. It just felt fun, which is kind of an odd thing when you're writing something that's so personal, and I it's so vulnerable. But I was having the time of my life when we were making it.
Good, good. And you mentioned the writing that you've improved. For you guys, how do tracks normally start off?
Normally, I mean, historically, they've always kind of started with something that I've brought to the table. Like I'll be alone in my room, and I'll write chorus, or I'll write a verse or something, and I'll have like some rough chord changes, and I'll bring it to the rest of the band, and we flesh it out from there. I'm mostly the one writing lyrics and melody, although lately, I've been kind of open to Adam and Casey's input on that too, and that's been fun. It's been it's not easy for me to let go of control, especially when it's stuff that's that I'm putting out myself. When I'm writing for other people, it's the best thing in the world, because I accept that I have no control, and I get to just kind of like throw ideas out and collaborate with people willy-nilly. But yeah, it usually starts with an idea that I bring forward. And I think, to what I had said earlier about growth as a songwriter that I feel like I've experienced, I'm becoming more comfortable mining details from my own life and my own personal experience in the world and my perspective. I think before, my emotions and perspectives were always in the context of a song, kind of through a little bit of a trying to put it through as universal a lens as I possibly could. And while sometimes that really works, sometimes I feel like it dilutes it a little bit, and if I get more specific, the message can become more universal in a backwards kind of way. So I think that's, over the last 4 years, I've allowed myself to do that. And it's a very weird thing, like, I think as a solo artist, it's very easy. I put a solo project out at the top of the year that was very personal and very specific to my own life. And that made all the sense in the world. When you're in a band, I don't, sometimes it's hard for me to think that way, because I'm in a band with other people, and I want to incorporate how they feel, and I'm very much a egalitarian in working within my band, and I try to be as democratic as possible. And this is the first time that I really just embraced my own inner dictator.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. And with the lyrics side of things, how easy do you find it to put lyrics to the music that you've already created?
Depends. I mean, I think that I came up in the school of like writing to beats. I would get beat packs, and I would write songs to other people's beats all day, every day. So it was kind of easy for me, or it's easier for me to work within the musical, framework of someone else's. But you know, I don't always write like that. It's not always like I start with chord changes. I sometimes start with a melody, or start with a word, and find the lyrics first, and then find melody around it. Lately, I've been finding that more conducive to my creative spirit, I think. I mean, not to sound cocky, but I think I can play around with melodies all day and chord structure all day. It's harder for me to find a concept that really hits home, and I want to focus on that first, always. And once the concept is there, I think the rest is pretty malleable. And I have no qualms taking a title of a song and rewriting the whole thing, because the title is great but the song isn't great, and I want to tweak it here, or like having a song fully written, reproducing it a million times to try and get something that matches the feeling of the song.
Yeah, nice. And you yourself have mentioned about the collaborations. Ex Ambassadors have been featured on and have had artists featured on. How do these collaborations come about?
In various ways. Sometimes it comes about really organically. It's a friend of mine and I'll ask them, or we'll be in a writing session together and we'll write the song right then and there, or I will have written something and I'll bring them in and they help me finish writing it. Or, it's an artist that I discovered just through like an algorithmic playlist, and I'll shoot them a DM and we'll meet as complete strangers and write a song for the first time. And sometimes it's really, boring and mechanical, and like a record label is like, "Hey, we got this song that's going to be on this soundtrack and we really want Sam's vocal on it,
Mm.
would he be down to put his voice on this thing?" And I'll depending on the project, depending on the people involved, I'll do it or I won't.
Mm.
But yeah, it comes in all shapes and sizes. I'm a very collaborative person. I mean, I'm in a band, so I like doing it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You've been busy this year as well. You've been over here in Europe and the UK on the road doing some touring. How was that?
It was great. Kicked my ass, man. It was a really long. We crammed a lot of dates into
Mm.
a lot of shows into few dates. But it was so much fun to get back in front of those crowds, and we've had to cancel a lot of shows in the last 3-4 years because of COVID.
Mm.
And I think that really built up demand for us. So a lot of the shows were sold out, and it's always nice to hear that the show's sold out, and to be in front of people who genuinely just were so excited to see us and hear our music, and it was nice to play some of the new stuff on the road too as it was coming out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And over the next few months as well, you're touring extensively across North America too. I bet you can't wait to be continuing the touring.
Can't wait. Can't wait. It's again, it's going to be a lot of work, but we're really excited about the album, and I can't wait to put it on its feet.
Yeah, nice. And I know you've only just been over here in the UK, but when do you think you'll be back?
As soon as it makes sense for us to come back, we gotta keep them wanting more, right? So we were just there. Probably will come back in the next year or so.
Yeah, great stuff. Sam, it's been a pleasure having a chat with you.
Thank you so much, man.